What's up, peeps? Nick Battle, aka NinosCorner, man. First off, if you like what you listen to, man, go like and subscribe. Give me those 5-star reviews, 5-star comments on pretty much every podcast platform that's out there. But today, man, we're not going to talk about football today. We're going to talk about what happened Game 7, Clippers versus Denver Nuggets. The Clippers took that L. They took that L. Like, really? Come on, Kawhi. You're supposed to be the man. You had the New Balance commercial, riding the 6'4", hopping, dice in the mirror with the new King keychain, basically telling LeBron James this is your city. Now, everybody wanted to see the Lakers and Clippers play in the Western Conference Finals, and I just knew that was going to be the series due to the Clippers playing Denver. But I did tell my dad. I told my dad that once it was down 3-1, I said, hey, if Denver wins Game 5 and push it to 3-2, Denver's going to win the series. And not lying, not saying it after the fact, but that's what I told my dad. And it happened, They never had this much pressure. Now, let's talk about the two main factors in this loss for the Clippers. You got Kawhi Leonard. You got Paul George. Playoff P. Playoff P, man. Yeah, right. Paul George had a horrible game. Game 7, you're expected to win. Paul George had a horrible game. So did Kawhi Leonard. I think Kawhi only had like 14 points in the game. But yeah, these two are supposed to be the guys that formed up to have all this wing defending. Paul George is one hell of a defender on the wing. So is KL. So is Leonard. Leonard is a great defender in the wing. You brought in a great scorer in Lou Williams, who's been a 3-time Sixth Man of the Year. He's instant offense, like instant grits. You got Harrell, who's the Sixth Man of the Year this year, who's a big guy down the paint. I don't think he's that big of a guy. He's not like a tall, like big power forward, big center, but he's a big guy, like in stature. Like he's a big guy, like 240, 250. And then you had Zubik at center, who I'm not really impressed with. And then you have Patrick Beverly, who is a point guard who plays great defense, but he doesn't play any offense. So I think this team from the start were pretty much doomed to, basically to fail. I wouldn't say fail, but I remember when I remember when this team first got constructed, and I looked at the roster, and I was like, you got Pat Beverly. He's a great defender, but he's a liability on offense. Okay. You got Kawhi, who's just an all-around great player. You got Paul George, who's a great defender, spotty on the offensive side. And then you have Harrell, who's your starting power forward or sixth man, however you want to line it up. I think Morris actually started a lot after the break. And then you got Zubik, who's your starting center, who I'm not really impressed with. And I started to match things up. Well, first, guys, let me preface this. I like Zubik, but when I say not really impressed for that kind of guy to be on a championship caliber team, especially considering the kind of talent that they are going to have to face here, or were to face in the Western Conference Finals with Anthony Davis being at center. So, I started to look at everything. When the season was first constructed, you had starting point guard, you had LeBron running point, okay? The two guard was Bradley, and then the three, I think they had Kuzma actually came off the bench. The three was Danny Green, who actually played two guard also. And then the 4 was Anthony Davis, and the 5 was either Dwight Howard or McGee. All right. So when I looked at those lineups, you got a guy like Avery Bradley, who's a total defensive stud. Him and Patrick Beverly are kind of like the same player, but Avery Bradley's shot is a whole lot better than Patrick, Beverly's shot. At the other guard, you got Green. So Danny Green versus Paul George. I like Paul George better than I like Danny Green. Then you got Kawhi Leonard and LeBron. Those two are going to wash each other out, even though I think LeBron's a better player. But those two will, essentially wash each other out because they're almost carbon copies of each other. Just LeBron is at a heightened level. At the 4, Anthony Davis versus whoever. Anthony Davis wins that matchup. And at the 5, I think it's a wash, whether it's Dwight Howard or whether it's McGee. Those two, one or the other, going against Zubik. Yeah, it's a wash because I don't think Zubik is of the caliber of a player who can bring it on the defensive end. Those other two guys can bring it. Zubik's not that kind of guy. So that was when the teams were first constructed. When playoffs happen, right? The team for the Clippers pretty much stayed the same. So when they talk about consistency, and we'll talk about this later on, those their team pretty much stayed the same. It was the Lakers team that changed. Avery Bradley decided not to come back because of the virus, right? And then you have LeBron playing. Rondo is not playing. He's hurt, so he has to kind of get himself ready to come and play. And he did play in his last series against Houston. It was a game changer for him. And so the actual lineups were like this: you had at the point, you had LeBron, and then you had Caldwell Pope at the two. You had at the three or the two. So they basically played two guards and a small forward. LeBron was a small forward, but he played point. But the other two guards were Danny Green and Caldwell Pope. The four was Anthony Davis, and the five was McGee. Okay. Similar lineup, but Avery Bradley, who is like the defender, is not playing, and so you have Caldwell Pope playing. So the Lakers had more turnover because Rondo wasn't playing, and then Rondo eases himself back in, so they got to get him ready and get him churned up. So the Clippers should have been a more well-tuned and well-oiled machine, but that wasn't the case. That was not the case. Lakers kind of rolled through the first two series, just losing two games, in those series, 4-1 against the Trailblazers, 4-1 against the Rockets, basically losing the first game in each series and then winning four straight. So like a gentleman's sweep. The Rockets, not the Rockets. The Clippers, on the other hand, go to game 6 with Dallas. And I think Dallas would have probably won that series if what's the big guy's name? Porzingis. If he didn't get hurt. Man, Luka Doncic is a beast. And so he couldn't carry the team by himself, but man, he tried and did his best. But that, 6 games for that series. And then in the second round, you got them versus Denver. Denver's coming fresh off of a 7-game series where they were down 3-1, so they know how to handle the pressure. They're down 3-1 against the Clippers again, and they win 3 straight. 7-game series, 4-3, they win the series, and voila, they are on the path to go play the Lakers in the West Conference Finals. How did this happen? How did this happen for the Clippers? Well, this is how I feel this happened. Look at Kawhi Leonard in his career. He's never had to be the man, guys. Ever had to be the man, okay? Look at those first years when he was in San Antonio. San Antonio had 3 baked-in Hall of Famers already there. You got Tim Duncan, you got Tony Parker, you got Manu. Those 3 guys are baked-in Hall of Famers. They were the continuity in that team. You bring in a young stud like Leonard who gets to absorb all this, and he doesn't have to take all the pressure of being the guy because you have so much top cover for you. So he came into a ready-made team. All right. He wins a championship there. I think he goes to 2 championships, wins one there, against LeBron, MVP of that championship. All right. Wants to leave. Was very disgruntled with the Spurs. He demanded a trade, basically. The Spurs traded him to Toronto, where I think was his best opportunity to keep winning. Goes to Toronto. Ready-made team. This is a team, guys, that challenged LeBron's Cleveland Cavaliers. Numerous occasions, they just couldn't get over the hump. So they send him up there in a trade for DeRozan, all right? And, so basically they swap those guys and a pick goes up, a pick or 2 goes up to Toronto. However, the team's already made. I mean, you took out a guy in DeRozan, sent him to San Antonio, and you replace him with a far better player. Nothing against DeRozan. He's a very good player. But Kawhi's in a whole other league. He's a top 5 player in this league. And so you take a guy who's a top 20, top 25 player in the league, replace him with a top 5 guy in the league, and all the chips stacked up right just for Toronto. Kevin Durant wasn't playing. He tore his Achilles. They had the lucky bounce, for Philly. And, they end up winning the Eastern Conference and go to the finals. No KD, no Klay Thompson after game 3. I think he gets hurt. He tears his knee up. So basically it's It's Steph Curry and Green. So those two versus that team in Toronto, which by the way, we'll get to that again. And Toronto beat them. And so once you start looking at this, you're like, man, Kawhi, this might be the place for him to actually stay because they got a great organization that brings in the talent. It's hard to attract free agents there. You are in a location where you are the man, you are the free agent, and you can do what you want. You own that city, But he left. He's from California. He goes to LA, not the Lakers, where everybody thought he was going to go. He ends up going to the Clippers. And what does he do? This is the first time where he has to be the man. And what I mean being the man is he is the guy who goes in that team and he has to start seeing if he can recruit players to come with him. So everybody thought he was going to go to the Lakers, okay? Because you got LeBron there, you got Anthony Davis. They're going to win a bunch of championships together. He goes to the Clippers instead, who I think might have better management. You got Jerry West there, the logo, who definitely knows how to construct teams. He constructed the Warriors team, that basically won all these championships. He was the GM there. So you got Jerry West there. You got Kawhi Leonard there. And Kawhi, what does he do? He gets Paul George to basically come and say he wants to come to LA to and demand a trade. So he wants to form his own pack to go beat down LeBron. I respect it. I respect it. I respect that, man. Don't join him, beat him. I respect it. But you demand to go get Paul George. So you demand to get Paul George. Paul George comes over to the Clippers. But the Clippers had to basically franchise their team. I mean, they hamstrung their team. They sent 5 first-round draft picks over to Oklahoma City to go get Paul George. Paul George comes over. Now, I like Paul George, guys, but he is not what he thinks he is. He's not playoff P. He's way off P. You know what I mean? So he's not that guy in those moments. And you would think a guy like Kawhi would understand that. But, hey, these are the moves he wanted. He wanted Paul George. He got Paul George. Paul George comes to the team. The team never really got in any kind of flow. It's almost like you had a bunch of the same players playing on that team. And you have Paul George and Kawhi basically play the same position. But they can interchange with the 2 and the 3, but they basically play the same position. All right. So you got Patrick Beverley. He is a guard. Lou Williams. He's a guard. I like Harrell. Harrell is a big, small forward, basically. He's not really a power forward. He's kind of a big, small forward. Zubik is a center, but he's not the toughest center. The guys off the bench, Morris, so Morris Sr., he is a big, small forward. He's not a power forward either. So where are your big men? So they had a bunch of basically guards and small forwards on that team. And yes, that would have went very well against a Houston team, but a team that has anybody that has a big guy, they're going to crush them. They're going to crush them, right? And so that's what happened when they came up against Denver. They had Denver on the ropes, 3-1. What did they do? They didn't have a big guy that can contain the Joker. The Joker he's a bad man. He's a bad man. Jokic is a bad man, and so is Jamal Murray. Both of those guys are amazing, but Jamal Murray, if they would have did it right, if they would have double teamed him and forced somebody else to make a play, it would have been a whole different series. We wouldn't be even talking about this. They would have won this series and called it a day. They put 2 men on Jamal Murray and forced Grant to beat you or forced Harris to beat you. Put a man on Jokic. Make sure he does not body the man who is playing him. And it's a whole different series. But they don't have anybody who could body Jokic. The Joker went off. And they don't have anybody who's big enough to bring it to the Joker also, man. They needed somebody to be able to play offense to make the Joker basically work on defense. And they didn't have anybody to do that. And he went off. He went crazy. Triple-double like halfway through the third quarter in Game 7. Man, what a beast. What a beast. So they ended up losing. So let's talk about Kawhi Leonard again. Let's talk about Paul George. Let's talk about playoff P and Leonard. The thing that got me with this team is Kawhi Leonard is one hell of a player. Yes, he is. I would say a top 5 player in this league. But the thing about Kawhi Leonard is he's not a vocal leader. And he's never had to be. When he, like I said, when he was in San Antonio, you had 3 vocal leaders in that team that been there, done that. Walk the walk, talk the talk, got the T-shirt, right? He goes to Toronto, Kyle Lowry was the dog of that team. He was the leader of that team because he's been there the longest. And Kawhi knew that. So it's almost like he played second fiddle to him, probably in the locker room, because he's not that vocal of a person. Now you come to a new team where it's your team. And when things go wrong, like you were up 3-1 and Denver wins game 5, and now it's 3-2. It's time for you to be vocal and get in these guys' butts and let them know it's time for us to close this series. He's never had to do that. I don't think Kawhi has ever had to have any kind of pressure on him to where he had to be the guy to make those hard decisions. He did make hard decisions. He made the hard decisions to bring Paul George in, right? But was it the right decision? He didn't make the best decisions when he had the opportunity. When you sit back and look at it, you play armchair quarterback right now. Let's look at hindsight 2020. The best decision for him was to stay in Toronto. You got Siakam there. You got Kyle Lowry. You got Ibaka, and you got Leonard. That would have been Eastern Conference Finals. They would have won the Eastern Conference Finals. They would be in the NBA championship right now. They would be a great team to go against the Lakers, who I'm picking to win the Western Conference and then to eventually win the chip. But we'll revisit this in a couple weeks after all that happens, if it happens. But getting back to Kawhi, he's never had to lead that team. He has never had to lead a team. It's just he's always come to pre-made and ready-made teams. And so, yeah, one thing I did not like, the post-game conference. Let's take a look and let's listen to what Doc Rivers said. Doc Rivers basically said that the team was they were not conditioned enough. Basically called his team out of shape. Now, for a team that allowed load management for Kawhi Leonard, he missed, last year. Kawhi only played 60 games last year, so he missed 22 games. So this year he load managed a lot. He asked to take off the day before, the day after Halloween this year. It's just so much, man. Like he load manages all the time. So for somebody who load manages and takes a good 20 to 25 games off a year, and you're gonna say you're tired, they're not conditioned, that's a foul on the player for wanting to load manage. It's a foul on the trainers, and most importantly, it's a foul on the coach. And I like Doc Rivers, but that's a foul on the coach because you didn't have your team ready. I think Doc Rivers saw that he had Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and said, you know what? My team did really good last year. I didn't have them. We took Golden State to a 6-game series without a guy like Kawhi or Paul George. We're tough. I don't need to coach that much. And the rumor is his teams for the Celtics and the Clippers, they don't really practice too much. Like that's the rumor that they didn't really practice too much. And so if that's the case, then shame on Doc Rivers. And let's be honest, Doc Rivers without KG, Kevin Garnett, hasn't been that successful of a coach. He's lost 3 series when he was up 3-1. Three in 3 different decades, man. Think about that for a minute. It'll never happen again. Never happen again. Never happen again. Like he did that. It won't happen again because this is bad coaching. So it's going to be interesting in the offseason to see what's going to go on with Doc Rivers. So will the Clippers let him go? Will they let him stay? Are they going to just promote Ty Lue to be the head coach? Ty Lue didn't want that job to the Lakers. I guarantee you wish he had it now. Because he wanted more years, more money. Well, I think he wanted more years. I think the money was fine. It was just the years. But I guarantee he wishes he had that 3-year contract with the Lakers. The Lakers only wanted to sign him for 3 years because they wanted him to basically be signed with the entirety of LeBron James' contract. And if LeBron James re-ups, they would probably re-up him too. But they didn't want to show too much loyalty to him. And I get it. You know your worth. You got pride. You want to be known to be a good coach. But this is a championship winning coach, and he's an assistant coach for Doc Rivers now, who both of them are gone fishing and sitting home now because they didn't coach well enough to basically have 2, I would say, top 15 players get past a young Denver Nuggets team. All right. Also, Kawhi Leonard, man, it's just it's almost like he just wilted under pressure, and You got to will your team to to win. You built this team. You got to take the pressure. There's one thing about LeBron that people don't realize. He takes all the pressure. The coaches aren't good. He gets coaches fired. He gets this. He wants his players, and he'll take all the blame. And he'll sit there and take all the blame. I don't think Kawhi's able to do that, and it shows that when pressure's on certain people and they're not used to it, do you does pressure bust pipes, or do you rise to the occasion? Look, I'm a military guy, and I run by the expression of this: you never rise to the occasion when you're in a stressful situation. You fall to the level of your training, and Kawhi has not been trained to be that guy. Those intangibles of being a leader, those things are things that aren't taught; they're inherited. I mean, those are things that are like intangibles. I don't think he has those. I mean, I just think he's just a great ball player. But you fall to the level of your training, that falls on Doc Rivers. So let's take a small break, man. But kudos to Denver Nuggets, man. They did play their butts off. Jamal Murray, Jokic, the Joker, they're good. They're good. But let's take a small break, man. Let's talk about one more subject. And then after we talk about this subject about Kawhi Leonard, we're going to talk about the upcoming Lakers versus Denver Nuggets. All right. All right, guys. And we're back, man. So let's talk about Kawhi Leonard again. Okay. Starting to think about this. I talked to my dad about this today. And he came to the conclusion. We were just talking. We're like, people so soon want to compare Kawhi. They're like the best shot since Jordan. I'm like, you guys never saw a guy named Kobe Bryant play. And after Kobe LeBron, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like Kawhi. I mean, but Jordan, come on, he ain't Jordan, y'all. Keep it real. Keep it a buck. Keep it 100. He ain't Jordan. But I started to think about this, and me and my dad were like, is Kawhi more Scottie Pippen than anything else? I mean, great player. But when I look at Kawhi, he has all the skill sets of Scottie Pippen. Even his passing is very good passing, very good mid-range game. He even uses the backboard sometimes. Like Pippen was known for that. Very good defense. Defense is amazing. Very good rebounder. It reminds me of the first year when Jordan left, right, and went to go play baseball, and Pippen to lead that team, gets them to the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Knicks. And was it the Knicks? Yeah, it was the Knicks. It was the Knicks. And they had that fluke call. Shouldn't have been a call. And to be honest with you, the Bulls should have won that series, and they should have went to go on to the Eastern Conference Finals and play Indiana. And they didn't. The Knicks ended up going to play Indiana. They beat Indiana. And then the Knicks played the Rockets and got beat, right? So I can't even say that he's like a Pippen. I mean, he's like Pippen, but Pippen had a harder road. I mean, he at least got to the conference semifinals with who's the second best player? Kukoc? I mean, they had Grant too, but Kukoc, I mean, we look at Paul George versus Kukoc. Who do you think's a better player? Horace Grant was a very good player. But you got guys who can take up that slack for the Clippers. You got guys like, Harrell, who's a junkyard dog. I like Harrell. But Grant was just a monster too, guys. That's a hard one for me. But yeah, man, I mean, is he more Pippen? Like people always want to say LeBron is Le Pippen, a la Skip. So Skip Bayless, but yeah, he's not a Le Pippen. LeBron's LeBron, man. To me, he's the top two player to ever play this game. It's either him or Jordan, and his legacy's still being written. So we shall see. Yeah, I think he's a top 2 or 3 player in the game. I mean, definitely no less than top 3. He's a top 2 player in the game. It's him and Jordan. It's whoever you want to put up there. But Kawhi ain't that guy. He's not LeBron. It is what it is. I would have loved to have seen, LeBron versus Kawhi, Clippers versus the Lakers, battle for the city. But there is no more battle for the city. It's the Lakers. It's the Lakers city. They're always the city. And it is what it is. So let's talk about the other game. Oh man, that Celtics and the Heat game. Way to go, Heat. Slow clap. Way to go, Heat. Way to go, Heat. I got the Heat winning the series in 6. And I think it's going to be the Heat versus the Lakers. So LeBron going against his previous team from 2 teams ago. And basically, Eric Spoelstra is doing a hell of a job coaching. It's a great coach with Jimmy Butler and Dragic and Hero and man, they got a nice team over there versus the Lakers. But let's back it up. Let's back it up and rewind that. Let's talk about this Lakers versus Denver series. I'm gonna go on the limb. I'm gonna say right here. I think the Lakers are gonna win this in 5 or 6. I'm gonna say Lakers in 5. I think the Lakers are gonna be just too powerful for them. They got Murray and they got Jokic. Now, what I will say about this is the Lakers are a far better defensive team than the Clippers. So what I think is going to happen is in the second half of these games, I think the Lakers are going to double team Jamal Murray, get the ball out of his hands. You have 3 good big men who can put a body on Jokic. And I think this is going to be really good for them is because Anthony Davis can put a body on him. Is he stronger than Davis? Yes, he is. But is he stronger than a guy like Dwight Howard or McGee? No, he's not. I think he's a little bit flabby. I think nothing against him, but I don't think he's in the best shape as compared to these other guys. But man, he's very, very physical. He's a very good player, very smart player. I mean, he's very smart. But what's going to separate the Lakers from the previous teams that the Nuggets have played is they're going to have a big guy who can take it to him also. So Anthony Davis is going to be able to size him up, face the hoop, and dribble around him because he doesn't play any defense. Anthony Davis is going to have a field day against Jokic, I think. It's just my opinion. Paul Millsap can play good defense. He's their 4. However, he's not big enough for Davis. Dwight Howard he's a 3-time defensive MVP of the league. And he's going to play defense on him pretty well. And he has a nasty streak about him, and he's very physical. I think that's going to be necessary. And JaVale McGee is very active and very good defensively. These guys have great lateral quickness. So when Jokic tries to make his moves, their feet placement and movement is really good for guys who are 7 feet tall. And so you got 3 guys who can do that for you. And I think they're going to take advantage of that. There's nobody on the Clippers. There's nobody on the Nuggets team that can handle LeBron. Nobody. I think we all know that. There's no point guard who can go point for point with Jamal Murray. However, what they can do is agitate him very well. Rondo is crafty. He's a very crafty veteran. Caldwell Pope is really good in the defensive end. So is Danny Green. They're going to throw a lot of bodies at him. They're going to double team him. He is not going to beat the Lakers. And then you're going to have Kuzma come off the bench, and he's going to score and do his thing. You have Morris come off the bench. He's going to score and do his thing. That's what happens in the playoffs. The benches shrink, and, you go from a 9-man rotation, 8-man rotation in the regular season to basically a 7-man, 6 to 7-man rotation. 7-man rotation. And the Lakers do play a 7 to 8-man rotation. I think they're actually going to play about 9 players in this series, which is odd for a playoff team. But you're going to play your starting 5, and then, considering that it's going to be McGee, Green, Caldwell Pope, Anthony Davis, and LeBron, and the guys off the bench they're going to bring Caruso off the bench. They're going to bring Kuzma off the bench. They're going to bring Rondo off the bench, and they're going to bring Morris off the bench, and they're going to bring Dwight Howard off the bench. They might go 10 deep in this series. Fresh bodies who can all play that system. And I think that's what's going to separate the Lakers from the Nuggets in this series. That's what I'm saying. I think it's going to be the Lakers in 5, 6 tops. But I think the Lakers in 5 because they're going to be deeper. They're going to be more physical. They're more rested. And it's going to come to a point where these 7-game series, the amount of effort and work that these guys are putting in against some good quality teams. Denver had to go against Utah. And after Utah, the Clippers and the Heat. I mean, just think of Jamal Murray, 250-point games. What did the kid almost average 40 points for the series, in that first series. And then against the Clippers, where, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard guarding you, Patrick Beverly, that takes a toll because those are some physical guys. And you got to come do it all over again. Like, you got 14 games over the past 2 games. I think the Lakers had 10. So 4 less games, a lot less minutes. I think the Lakers are going to have 6 or 7 days of rest prior to them coming in. And I think it's advantage Lakers. And you got a guy in LeBron James who has been in the playoffs, been in the finals, 9 times already? Now he's won 3, been there 9 times. So he understands what it's like to play in these playoffs. And nobody from the Nuggets have that experience, at least under the stars. So you got LeBron who's had the experience. You got a guy like J.R. Smith who can talk about it because he's been in those locker rooms. You got a guy like Dwight Howard who's been to the finals before. So you got guys who have been there, who got that hunger, that thirst. JaVale McGee's been to the finals and won 2. You got guys who've been there, won it, got the T-shirt, and they can speak. Rondo, I keep forgetting, Rondo has a finals championship. I mean, they got guys who had that chemistry and been there, won championships, and they can know how to settle these guys down. One more thing to note that really struck me after the Nuggets beat the Clippers is when you saw their post game when they were in the locker room, they're throwing water and they're chanting and they're hype, and it's almost like they won a championship. And you know what that reminded me of? It reminded me of when Cam Newton and the Panthers went to the Super Bowl when they lost that 1 or 2 games that season. Cam was the MVP of the league. After they won the NFC championship, right? They were on the field partying, taking pictures and everything, and almost like they won the Super Bowl. And then to me, it was like that was their Super Bowl. They're going to get crushed in the Super Bowl. And that's what I felt like when I saw Denver. They were hopping around like they won the championship. And that Clippers game was their championship because they weren't expected to win that series. And the Lakers are going to win. I think they're going to win in 5 games. I said 6 tops, but I think it's going to be 5. All right? And I think the Lakers are going to play Miami. If the Lakers play Miami, the Lakers are going to win that series 5 or 6 games too. I think Boston stacks up better with the Lakers, but I don't think Boston's going to get past Miami because Miami's just too tough. They're physical. Boston's more talented, but man, Miami's physical. Dragic, physical. Underrated physicality. Jimmy Butler, physical. What's their center's name? I can never pronounce his name right. Physical. Those guys play ball, man. It's like that block shot the center had on Tatum. They play ball. They ain't scared of nobody. Hero can shoot that 3. I think Robinson's the other guy can shoot that 3 too. So on that note, guys, man, I've been talking for a while. Good to talk to you guys, man. I think this is episode 95. We're almost there to episode 100, man. So appreciate you guys listening. Love you guys, man. Don't be afraid to fail. Outgrow your environment. Understand your abilities, man. Actually understand your brilliance. I said abilities, but that's because I had a speaking engagement. I used the U as understand your abilities, but it's understand your brilliance. Understand your brilliance, guys. All right. So on that note, man, I'm out. NinosCorner out. Let's enjoy these playoffs. Let's get it.